Chevreuse is the most surprised character in the banner of Raiden and Kinnish. We have a new character concept with her, since after the dedicated supports that buffen a single element. We have the supports that are dedicated to a whole team, like Nile with the blooms, Emilie with burns and crackles, and Chevreuse with overload equipment. So today, very good gamers how we are. This is Games Unchilled, and today we are in the legendary building of Chevreuse. You know, leave a good like, a good Bennett utility, subscribe, leave a good comment for the algorithm. Thanks for enjoying and watching the video and the channel. It does not cost you anything, it's free, it helps a lot. It makes the video stand, recommend, grow, and the entire channel team is grateful. See you in the directs, link down here in the description, and let's break down Chevreuse as well. And then there's Zoma. Literally, with the banner you can put together a whole team just for lack of Bennett. But Bennett Cohen, you can buy it at the store, it's free. So it's funny, and you literally get a computer too. New people coming back to the game. It shows, as you point out, and we continue with the build, that NATLAN are trying to think about new players, as is the case with the banner, and provide tools to people so that those who arrive new to Genshin can, literally, like with this banner, put together a whole team. Well, his normal attack doesn't do anything, it doesn't go up, you didn't waste resources. Point ID. His elementary ability and his ulti, now I explain more in detail, but he prioritizes his elementary ability only because when you max out your elementary ability, you max out the heating. The rest are scaled from damage that is not so bad. The damage of the Ausha this remains exactly the same, but this is the important thing. The heating that executes. The heating she has is slightly poor, is less than the heating that can give us a Kuki. Rather minor in fact, because Kuki is curing you more with about 25,000 lives than what is curing you Chevreuse with more. That's why the cap of a talent, which is my case, I'm continually going to recommend you to be over 40. Zero of life, because if not, Chevreuse, it costs a lot to really be a solid defensive supporter of an overload team. So now yes, elementary ability has two modes, normal and maintained. I recommend maintained, because in addition to being active, the rest of passives and you consume the passive of the overloaded bullet. The overloaded bullet can only be activated once, which is the Marquita next to Chevreuse, and is activated when someone from the FA equipment makes an overload. It's very easy, and basically by throwing the elemental you generate a barrage of particles, and when spending, the bullet overloaded with the charged elemental activates the passives and talents for Chevreuse to do its function very well. The ulti does nothing. JPGDIA. It's just damage. Chevreuse's ulti is damage, damage, damage. There are people who recommend that you build it with a little chance that it will hurt. But the reality is that you need to get to 40,000 of your life so much to activate this attack buffo, the maximum, so that your elemental heals enough to keep your team alive. So no harm building, no strange things to do. Chevreuse has to take so much to triple life. Now we're talking about it, like maybe a little bit supporting with Favonius. Now we're also talking about it because it has several weapons. But Chevreuse's function is clear and is to enable the equipment, cure and activate all the buffs to maximize damage. As you can see, elementary and ulti don't have much mystery. Now, the correct Chevreuse combo, before explaining the talents, is first to throw away the ulti that generates a quantity of heat. Multi-hits Pyro very high, and if you have an additional electro source that can be Raiden's elemental, Yai's totems, Fischl's Raven. All this is going to jump an overload, and it's going to activate when you pull the ulti. The passive of the overloaded bullet, and then you can throw away the charged elemental to generate particles for the next Pyro. That can preferably be Xiangling, or perhaps in the future Mavaika that comes to buff the overload equipment. Because Xiangling has 20 seconds of cooldown and Chevreuse has 15 in elementary and 15 in ulti, with which Mavuika will surely come to buff the overload teams. But this is simply speculation in the future. Chevreuse combo. We entered the field after leaving an electro source. We threw the ulti. We throw away the charged elemental. If you have the C4 that now spoke of it, you throw another charged elemental and that gives you more particles. For the team, and it's fine. And we have the Chevreuse combo. First talent, as you see, is a lot of text and is similar to that of Nilu. Says if the team is formed only by Pyro and Electro. If at least a Pyro and an Electro this people don't understand, it's very easy to explain, and it's if there is the entire team formed from Pyro and Electro. But at least there is no Pyro and an Electro. Means that this could be activated with a team of 4 Pyro, i.e. Chevreuse, Bennett, Xiangling, Yomiya. And this isn't the case, there has to be a minimum of an Electro for an overload reaction. So if this happens, if any team does, some percent resistance, Pyro and Electro like the Green Shadow, but only Pyro and Electro. For the full Pyro and Electro equipment, including this Raiden Hyper, carry with 2 Pyro. That would be Bennett, Chevreuse, Sarah, Raiden, meet the conditions. Ascent when Chevreuse shoots the overloaded tip bullet, which is the passive one I told you to activate by making A. Overload the attack of all Pyro and Electro members of the team for 30 seconds, increases by 1% per 1000 points A. Of life up to a cap of 40% attack. That would be equivalent to 40,000 life. And that aside can be accumulated with a set of nobility that can carry Chevreuse. But there are some teams where you don't go with Bennett, with which Chevreuse goes to nobility, and other teams where you do go with Bennett, with which Chevreuse can carry other different sets. A 2 and 2, or something like that. And for the new ones who say, oh, what do you mean Bennett nobility? Well, because Bennett is a character built with nobility. For those who don't know much and are new to the game, and the set of nobility cannot accumulate, there you are seeing on screen that says this effect cannot accumulate at the end of the green text to the right. Basically now we enter the set, but this buffo, as I say, it accumulates with the set of nobility with which Chevreuse gives you 60% attack to the team and lowers the resistances. Now, apart from curing, now constellations, the cone. Once every 10 seconds to a character on the team. It gives you 6 of energy. Etan's very small, and it activates when there is an overload. It's very little, it's not worth it. Don't get warmed up by the cone, Chevreuse. If there's an overloaded bullet, they're going to do 2 extra pyro strokes. That is, your charged elementary skill will do as more. Multi-hits for you to jump more overload reactions and activate all the passives of the equipment, and besides do more damage to the overload reaction with the multiple strokes of the pyro that will make us the charged elemental. It's interesting. It's to make sure you maybe activate the passive. It's to agree with this right here. Neither does the gameplay change you too much, because if you did well by throwing the ult and then the elemental loaded the first time without the C2, the combo is going to be perfect, and you will activate all the buffos, with which it is half ornament and are more multi-hits. This is the elemental plus 3 that starts a little bit worth it, because you get it in my case 9 plus 3. 12, and that extra climbing starts to be worth healing because it cures the character in the field like Kuki, but very little. That is, it is the same elemental ulti combo charged, but with the C4 it is elemental ulti loaded. And then this is more energy for itself, and for the team. Itas very interesting, Itas not indispensable, and Chevreuse with Chero does its job well and enables all the equipment perfectly overload. Last 3, it is a little more damage, but I do not recommend looking, so forget it. And this is this buffo that people don't understand, but I'll tell you that it's not as good as it looks and does. It is not good for raid and hyper carry for obvious reasons. He says after 12 seconds of the healing effect. From your elemental, all the characters on the nearby team regenerate life. It's a healing tick to the whole team, but 12 seconds after casting your elemental. I mean, like it's activated at the beginning of the second rotation, it doesn't change you much. Simply because it is a little more defensive sustain, and here at last, it is solid sustain for most players. Maybe the players who play very well, dodge well, come from playing Dark Souls and a lot of etc. There are unhealing teams that work perfectly in the right hands, but an average of Genshin players. That they need a balance of defensive sustainability, and that is survival and damage. This is just where I think it really is. There's a real balance on these teams unless you play perfect. After a character gets a cure because of the elementary ticks are super slow. They're like kooky, so beware that this isn't going to be a character getting 80,000 buffs in a second. What happens? That 2 in, for example, 2 buffos? Because then 3 do not. 2 buffos of 20 and 20. 40% electro damage, for example, a Raiden in hypercarry. You must have entered with Raiden into the field and received 2 Chevreuse healing ticks. In the right combo Raiden and hypercarry, you, after throwing Sarah's combo in with a Raiden, you throw the ulti and hopefully you get the first tick that is 20% electro damage. The second tick you'll get when you've probably got 1 or 2 loaded and you're 3 seconds away. And the third tick to receive 60% of Bonnier Electro with the Chi-Ix in Raiden, you're going to get it right before you get off the field and lose the buffo, so you're really going to get this Chicks of Chevreuse just buffer to the character in the field, and ticks are very slow healing, so most characters will only benefit from 20% of Bon Elementary Year of this Chicks, and none will actually take advantage of the 60% damage bonus unless you save the damage for spoiler, yeah, Kino. You can throw the ulti at the end, but the damage to normal attacks is decaying because you're losing Vital Covenant, with which you don't do this for an Alekino overload. You can leave the ulti for the end with Chlorinde, but the real Chlorinde combo is first throw the ulti, and then do the combo with normals, which would not really serve for Chlorinde either. This Chicks is very cheating and does not really make Raiden and hypercarry break with Chevreuse Shine's Ix, but it's interesting and it's good to explain that it's not that important for you two sets. Well, I would recommend mainly 2 sets. But the structure and hierarchy is very simple. The teams of Raiden, Ye Miko, Xiangling, Chevreuse are very good, yeah, official, Xiangling. Chevreuse with its Xiangling and 2 Electros, which is the current pure and cleanest core to play Overload, are great. So you don't wear nobility there because you don't go with Bennett, so you can wear nobility in Chevreuse. Now if you play the example of Raiden and hypercarry, that is Raiden, Sarah, Chevreuse, Bennett here if you wear nobility in Bennett. So Chevreuse could have 2 alternatives. Alternative number 1. If you have it Chicks take Chevreuse are old-fashioned because the checks could finally activate it, or you can activate the Son of Yesteryear in the second rotation that in some chambers of Abyss as. You do 2 rotations per room and activate it in the second rotation. Or if you have Chicks, it gets activated half decently. If you don't have Chicks, you didn't feed them back in the day and you're going to play Chevreuse with Bennett Nobility, then Chevreuse can take you 2 and 2. You can take him 2 and 2 of whatever you want. 2. I personally recommend 2 life, i.e. 2 Geo Armada, 2 Radiance of the Bureaucracia. 2 that give him more life, because I think that what he has most deficit is life in general, and then that he has to have, because mainly, I would recommend Chevreuse triple life, but here comes the simplest explanation of the world, but at the same time more concrete in Chevreuse. And it's that in Chevreuse I would practically recommend only 3 weapons to you. I would recommend this weapon that you won't have many new people because it is an event weapon. It is a weapon that we were given for free and that cannot be recovered again. And that, in addition, they said from Hoyoverse that the event weapons are not going to come back in theory. Possibly one day they want sales because they become crazy people and they make an event to get old event guns, I don't know, but the thing is, this is their best weapon, gives them a lot of life, and by performing a cure included outside the field regenerate 16 points of elementary energy to have the ulti. This is his best weapon. Then this weapon is Fontaina's Forge, is similar to this one but with some deficits. It gives you life, but less, and gives you 16 points of energy R5 also, but not by performing but by receiving a cure, with which this weapon is activated when you combine it perfectly with the C4 of Chevreuse, because you stay a second more in the field doing both. Elementals charge to generate more energy. If you do not have the C4, you have to throw the elemental ulti loaded your combo normal and wait a second to receive the first healing tick to generate energy and use. This weapon is the one I would most recommend with Chevreuse in all cases, and would be playing triple life with this weapon and ready. Now you could try if this weapon, because whatever it is you don't convince you want to look for alternatives. I don't know how people. You always want to start creating improvisation and invent in Genshin. You can even wear Favonius in Chevreuse, but maybe here. You would have to look for, or triple life, a lot of probability in substat or double life in the clock, and in the chalice and helmet of probability. For that Favonius to be activated, but making calculations becomes complicated to reach 40,000 of life with this latter composition. Of Favonius plus probability helmet, though it's an alternative that I've sometimes seen recommended, not recommend much, but I explain it because in the end it's interesting to see all the points of view, and if you don't have this weapon that's perfect for her, then this weapon that gives you less life and that you have to wait a second to activate the regeneration of energy, or with much lucky to play Chevreuse C4, for whoever has it C4, that there is ulti elemental, charged the actives always, and salts. That's why I wanted to take a second to explain the set. Now it's life percent recharged with energy, and if anything, probability for the Favonius variant, but basically life to heal, and finally. And if finally already, because we have already explained everything that your stat we seek in Chevreuse as well, she has cost of 60, which is extra mega exaggeratedly low, but it is that above with the two weapons that I have recommended to you. RAR5, it regenerates you 16, with which it has a cost of 44, is very low. Is a cost of the lowest of the game, so really she, with about 160-65, has ulti perma on almost all teams. Because in addition, the soil overloads play with the electro consonants every time there is an electro reaction. In this case, the overload is generated an extra particle, and that consists of the electro consonants, and in some equipment obtaining the C4 even. You'll have even more energy with the C4, you have more energy, so nothing 65, and with the C4 55, and you go too quiet to have perma. Ulti, and on the other hand, the minimum life 40,000 to activate the talent this that I explained to you, but I recommend more. If someone really has all the peace of mind in the world to look for their flat living stat and percentage living flowers with him, recharge, and so you follow 50,000, 55,000, 60,000, you will notice that the teams are more comfortable because the healing ticks will begin to be worth without having the ticks then already, with the Chiikes and the general tick in the second rotation even more comfortable. Because there, in this case, it will give us a general tick of 10% of the life of Chevreuse. 10% of 40,000 is 4,000. It puts a tick of 1/3, the whole team, and you're already full of life with the chicks and the teams. What I've said, which main ones are Chevreuse with Xiangling and 2 Electros, and in the future, Chevreuse with Mavuika, and this is the best you can play with Chevreuse. Chevreuse no. Combines as well in Overload with the Pyro carries as an Alakino, or a Hutao. A Joymila mainly combines either with the carries Electros like Raiden Chlorine, or quick swap equipment that are quick change equipment that I have explained to you. A lot that are uncarried teams, a J Fischl Xiangling Chevreuse, and you change character, and you go in and out and do things with the whole team. Little more build summarized is not 40 minutes, is not an hour, is 20. We have stayed, and this is the Chevreuse build. Good alternate subscribe. Leave a good comment for algorithm. Thank you for enjoying and watching the video, and the channel helps a lot to grow and position the channel and the video for you to see more people now coming out the banner so they know how to build. Chevreuse is probably the last building of Chevreuse because it doesn't have much more mystery, and I'm in a NATLAN era where every build is going to be many of them the last because it's already the first, second, or third of many characters, and I will focus on reworks or more interesting things. But there will be builds that there'll be final last like Raiden's in a few days, possibly tomorrow, so wait for Raiden's build.